so is talking about, recruiting someone or getting someone in a plot, he'll constantly be thinking like, hey, is that guy working with the FBI? Is he an informant? And it creates, in the FBI's term, a hostile environment for this kind of crime. The same type of aspiration exists for the FBI in these counterterrorism stings, which is to say that they want to create an environment where a would-be terrorist, a real terrorist, would constantly wonder, hey, is this guy I'm talking to an informant? Because I've heard about all these cases where people get busted as a result of an informant, and that that would then stop them or slow them from getting involved in an attack. That may well be a beneficial result of these sting operations. It may have resulted in an attack not happening, perhaps. I don't know, but that's not something we can really quantify. But that is that is precisely actually the government's explanation for why they in part do some of these tactics. That said, I mean, a more cynical view and a less generous view of the FBI is to say that every year the FBI gets $3 billion to fund its counterterrorism program. It's the largest part of its budget, and the FBI director can't come back to Congress every year and say, hey, fellas, I spent all your money and I didn't find any terrorists. So these sting operations provide a very convenient mechanism for them to say, hey, look, you gave us $3 billion and here are all the plots that we foiled, without going into detail about how they use an informant and how the person never actually had connections to Al-Qaeda. They'll just say things like, we busted a plot that was to bomb synagogues in the Bronx. We busted a plot that was to bomb a downtown skyscraper in Dallas, and on and on and on. Ultimately, though, the effect that this has is that it justifies future funding. And so what we have is kind of a wag the dog situation where Congress gives out money, the FBI justifies it through these dubious sting plots, and then Congress gives as much, if not more, money the next year, and more sting plots are announced. And so I think that, as you put it, the cynical view is that this is basically just a way of justifying all of the terrorism funding that the FBI is getting.
Now, move along with that theory. Then no one in Congress is savvy enough to look at this paperwork and take a look at this and say, hey, there's nothing much here. Because we know normally their motivation would be, hey, there's a lobbyist, giving them an envelope. So then they would go along with this kind of stuff and funding this and funding that. But in this situation, is there a lobbyist involved in this?
There's I don't think there is a lobbyist involved for sane criminal justice policy. No, I mean, as a journalist, I do not get involved in activism, but I do know, for example, that the Human Rights Watch folks, as well as the gentleman who did the Newberg Sting documentary, they took their work around Congress, and they, in the documentary's case, they did a couple of screenings. And the hope was to raise attention to these issues, to try to encourage, some kind of pushback from congressional officials. But, so far that just hasn't happened. I just, again, this is a cynical view. I tend to think that it's just really politically uncomfortable for, congressional officials who are elected every 2 years to have to go back to their districts and explain why it was that they were questioning, counterterrorism policy, and why it was that they thought that the FBI should receive less money for its counterterrorism program. It's like, it's such a it creates such a billy club that a political opponent can attack them with, that I think for the most part that, career-minded politicians, haven't really wanted to pursue it.
Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. They go right, because then there's a campaign ad saying, "Hey, your congressman voted no." They got a picture of a guy with a turban and a beard holding a machine gun. He's supposed to free this man and send him to your schools. Yeah, I can see that happening. Okay, let's get back. We've got to take another commercial break here real quick. We're with Trevor Aaronson, the Terror Factory, inside the FBI's Maufactured War on Terrorism. We'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook. at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends at the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I want to remind you again about Amanda's event over there at the Bioneers event in San Francisco, October 16th to the 18th. Go by and check out her booth. What's that thing called again? The National Bioneers Conference. And there's going to be a lot of... Tom Hayden's going to be speaking there. And that guy Densmore from The Doors, he's going to be there speaking. So it's a huge, huge event. So go down there and check out Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo down there at the National Bioneers Conference from the 16th to the 18th. So we're here tonight with our guest, Trevor Aaronson, author of The Terror Factory, Inside the FBI's Manufactured War on Terrorism. A couple of questions for you, Trevor. I might have your mic turned down still. Go ahead.
I'm here, Ed.
Okay, great. Okay, I thought I had you on mute. Okay, some of the people in the chat room, they're asking about this one case. I'm not familiar with who he is. Let me pull this up real fast. You know what? I'm not going to be able to get back up there. But it was that one of the witnesses, the brother of one of the suspects, said that after the brother hooked up with the FBI agent, that his personality totally changed. And that's kind of similar to what was described about one of the suspects in the anthrax case, this Dr. Irvins, who became the lead suspect. As a matter of fact, they kind of convicted him after his death, saying that, the case is closed now because he committed suicide, now he's dead. And people described his personality as changing after getting involved and being the target of the FBI investigation. Have these guys who are targeted by these informants and by the FBI, have you noticed that kind of a pattern where perhaps they're being drugged or mind controlled in some kind of way?
As if they're on the MK Ultra or something?
Yeah.
No, I have no evidence of anything like that. I was looking at the chat room here.
Oh, good, okay.
I looked at the questions about the Sammy Osmakosh case.
There you go.
Right. So I wrote about the Osmakosh case for The Intercept in March, and a part of that was a discussion of, what was interesting about that case was Sammy was mentally ill. He was among the people who had schizoaffective disorder, and his family recounts kind of his movement toward, kind of average American immigrant trying to fit into society to this kind of really radicalized Muslim. And they say that a big part of it was that he had met this friend named Russell Dennison. And there's a lot of questions about whether Russell was working for the government. His family suspects he was. I was not able to confirm that he was, but his story was pretty suspicious. Ultimately, Russell introduces Sammy to someone we could confirm was an FBI informant, and that's how the sting started on Sammy Osmakosh. But I don't ascribe any of these cases to mind control per se. I mean, I think one of the things that happens in these cases is that there's a really strong psychological relationship between the informant and the target, because oftentimes the targets are people who are social misfits. They haven't had a lot of friends. They usually don't know a whole lot about anything, particularly Islam. And the informant kind of comes off as, hey, I'm Mr. Popular, and I'm, can tell you about the Quran, and I've got a nice car, and, does things that endear the target to such an extent that, it's almost like a father-son relationship or a big brother, little brother relationship where the target of the sting operation wants so much to impress the informant. And that was true in the Sammy Osmakosh case, both of his relationship with Russell Dennison, who may or may not be a government agent, and Raouf Dabous, who was the government's informant. There was this need to impress him. And so I don't think any of these cases are mind control. I think that there's a lot of psychological manipulation that happens through this very unique relationship that that is developed between the target of a sting and an informant or an undercover agent posing as a terrorist of some sorts. And you see it in case after case. In the Newburgh 4 case, James Cromedy, the lead defendant, had this almost overwhelming urge to impress the informant, and as a result, he would make up these stories. Like, he claimed that his brother broke into a Macy's and stole tens of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, and he claimed to have thrown a Molotov cocktail at a police precinct, none of which could be verified and all of which was most likely a lie, but it was his way of kind of impressing that person. And as I said, so we see that in a lot of cases, and I think it's part of the FBI's manipulation of these targets is that they get them to seek the approval of the informant or the agent to such a degree that they're able to convince them to do things that they might not otherwise have wanted to do on their own, including getting involved in, these fantastical terrorism plots.
It's fascinating because you see that in the cases of these con men and their victim, where they're conning them out of their money week after week after week, and the victim will be trying to impress the con man, and all the stuff you described is just so typical of those kind of cases that so often you see in organized crime cases too. A lot of these organized crime guys, they're not just out, bookies and that kind of stuff. They're conning people out of their money too, confidence games. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I think there's absolutely a parallel to, kind of a fraud artist and a confidence man and an FBI informant, right? In many ways, the ultimate goal is the same. A fraud artist or a confidence man wants to separate